Hi everyone, it's Kirsten, and today I just want to take a couple of minutes to talk about focus in a nonfiction picture book biography. So I have just finished reading this excellent book, um, Irving Berlin, The Immigrant Boy Who Made America Sing by Nancy Churnin, illustrated by James Rey Sanchez. Um, and just a couple things points I want to make about this book. First of all, Nancy Churnin has a very tight focus in this book. So you may know Irving Berlin as a very famous composer. In fact, White Christmas is my all-time favorite Christmas movie. But the interesting thing about this book is that's not the story that Nancy Churnin is writing. She has picked a very specific story, the story of how Irving Berlin came to write God Bless America, which is a very well-known patriotic song. So she's kept her focus really tight. And here are some interesting things that I observed about this book. So the first thing is the illustrator, James Rey Sanchez, has used the title page to provide a little bit of context about Irving Berlin before we even start to read the story. So if you notice, you'll see some different posters of different musicals that Irving Berlin helped write. You'll see his piano there, so we know he becomes a famous musician. But the interesting thing is, nowhere in the book, except for the very, very end, does she mention a lot of Irving Berlin's most famous work. So the only context we have to know that he becomes very successful is what's shown on this title page, which I think is pretty cool, the way that that context has been woven in just with the pictures. Now, here's another interesting spread. This very first spread, it says, Irving stood on tiptoe to see over the rail. Behind him, too far to glimpse, was Russia, where angry Cossacks had burned his family's home to ashes. Ahead was America. What would they find there? So very early on, in the very first page, Nancy tells us what his family is fleeing. They're fleeing war in Russia. And she could have very easily gotten derailed here and given us a whole history of Russia and the Cossacks and the problems that they were facing. But she's really asked herself, what do my readers really need to know to understand what's going on in this particular opening scene? So she doesn't get bogged down explaining a lot about what's going on in Russia, explaining who the Cossacks are. She tells us just enough for us to know that we've got a scared young boy on the ship who's running for his life and looking towards America. And that's really all we need to know. So I thought this was a really cool example of having a very tight focus right from the beginning. Now, the other thing that I thought was very clear in this book that I really liked is Nancy gives a very clear sense of the catalyst and what Irving's goal is in this book. So she talks in the first few spreads about how when they saw the Statue of Liberty, the people started singing, and specifically his mom said the words, God bless America, and Irving Berlin repeated them back to his mother. And then she says, he could hear the statue singing her own special song, low and warm. One day, Irving promised himself, I am going to write a song just for her. So with that, on the third spread, we know exactly what this book is going to be about. We know what his goal is, what his journey is going to be, and what he wants more than anything. And then throughout the rest of the book, she keeps that laser focus. So we see how music came into Irving's life, how he experienced music in the church, how he heard music in the sounds of the neighborhood in which he lived, how he struggled to overcome his father's death, which made him have to go out to work, how he struggled to overcome his inability to actually write music and how he found ways around that. So we experience his struggle, but it's always with respect to what that goal is of writing that song for America. So she really only discusses his success as a very famous composer on a couple of spreads, and she really focuses more on composing that he was doing um, for a musical for soldiers called Yip Yip Yafank, which he wrote to kind of give the troops a morale boost during World War One. And then she segues into 20 years later. He was trying, as the U.S. entered World War II, he was trying to figure out what else he could do for his country. And that's when she comes back to this idea of God Bless America. But the cool thing about this book is she did not get taken off track. She did not start telling us about all his fabulous success on Broadway. She just gives us the pieces that we need to see him struggling to learn how to do music, and then to show his patriotism so that when we get back to God Bless America, it makes sense. And in fact, the only spread where she really talks about a lot of his Broadway musical success is the second to last spread, where she says, over the years, Irving earned a lot of money from songs like Always, There's No Business Like Show Business, and White Christmas, but he never took a penny for God Bless America. Irving he talks about how he gave all his money to the Boy and Girl Scouts from that song, and it's her concluding line, I think, perfectly sums up this book. It was his thank you to the country that opened its arms to countless people from all over the world, including a homeless boy who came to America with nothing but music in his heart. And that perfectly sums up what this book is about and tells us, the takeaway. So anyway, I think it's real easy when you have a very famous person to get off track and to have a hard time figuring what's the important stuff that has to be included in my specific story, because in a picture book you don't have the room to tell the story of the whole life. And I think Nancy Churnin's done an excellent job in this particular book, and of course with all the discussion about immigration here in America today, it's a very timely story. So I highly recommend it. It's from Creston Books, and thanks. Have a great day.